SIM members are seeing a lot of change in today's world, and CEOs are right there with them, wondering what is going on? How do we handle these things? And we've got a person joining us today who is an expert at helping organizations find out how to make sense of all this, and he's got a wonderful style of answering these questions that we're going to tap into right now. His name is Simon T. Bailey, and he's joining us right now from his offices in Orlando. Simon, thanks so much for being with us today.
Terry, good to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I know you're going to be speaking for the SIM event that we're going to have in May right here in Orlando. And we're going to be talking about a number of different things. One of the things I wanted to ask you about today, you talk a lot to audiences around the world about what CEOs are facing today and the issues that are on their mind, kind of what keeps them awake at night in regards to customers and what we need to be. How do you see that affecting people who are in IT, and what's going on? What are you seeing with companies that you're talking to, and what are CEOs facing today?
The number one thing that CEOs are facing right now is, as they think about talent, do they have the leadership bandwidth that is going to lead them into the future? Because in the words of Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. So what I am going to do is I'm going to share with all of those in the audience some of the C-suite thinking right now and how they can see themselves as a solution to really solve some of the problems that CEOs are facing. As you know, the tenure of CEOs is maybe 24 months, maybe 36 months if they're lucky. Yeah. So how do everyone that's sitting there, how do they begin to accelerate how they think what they do, how they approach what they do with a fresh perspective?
Interesting. What are some techniques that you've seen from some of the CEOs and the groups that you've dealt with that are working that help them to deal with that?
One of the things that they are doing is this thing around open spaces where they're engaging talent with a different perspective, a different insight, a different approach, and they're ensuring that they have a diversity of thought that's challenging conventional thinking to get to the best solution. So this whole open space concept is how are we leveraging everyone every day in every way?
Oh, I like that. Well, now that ties into another thing that I know you talk about, and I'm going to kind of reach through the screen here, twist your arm just a little bit there. So you talk to us about being a chief breakthrough officer. When I heard you talk about that, I thought, oh, that sounds fascinating. Tell me what you mean by that and the implications for that for today's C-level and for IT professionals.
One of the greatest things organizations need right now is that chief breakthrough officer who understands not just the culture of the organization and not just what drives revenue, but what is the thread through both of those that they look for breakthrough solutions every day in every way. They look at how the workforce is upskilling and how do they do that quicker, faster. They're looking at the feedback from customers and how do they not just take that feedback and make changes, but ensure that when change happens, that everybody, no matter where they are on the change curve, embraces the change for where the organization is going. So that chief breakthrough officer creates three things. Number one, a breakthrough in mindset. Number two, a breakthrough in will set. And number three, a breakthrough in skill set. So how are they ensuring that everyone they're connected with really understands that?
I like that, the mindset, the skill set, and then the
will set.
The will set. That makes a lot of sense, because if you don't have one of those three, it's like it seems like it'd be like a three-legged stool, and you knock one of them away, it all falls down. How do you make sure that people can get all three of those with so much going on in their world and their busy schedules?
People have got to know how they fit. If people don't know how they fit, they act like a misfit. And they'll work hard enough to keep a job and do just enough to keep from getting fired. So that chief breakthrough officer makes sure that he or she connects the dots as to how does it impact not just the human being, but the organization and ultimately the customer.
That makes a lot of sense there. And Simon, by the way, one of the things that you have done recently, I want to share this with SIM viewers that are out there, a video that you put out there on YouTube that had 100 bazillion, I think, that might be the number. Actually, what's the good current count on that very popular video you did?
I think on Goldcast it's up to about 62 million views now.
62 million views. Tell us, and I'm going to say, you went out and really bared your soul. You talked about something that resonated with a lot of people, obviously 62 million. Tell us a little bit about that and how people could watch that video.
I think one of the things that C-suite men and women have to learn is it doesn't matter if you're a public success and a private failure. And for me, I had experienced incredible success, but was a private failure and needed to work on some things that will ultimately impact my scalability and the impact that we can have globally. So one of the things I'm going to share is how do you become that person that is both congruent publicly and privately and succeeding at an accelerated pace?
Yeah, I like that. Well, since we got you right here live, I know there's several things that you're going to talk about there. Could you share just at least one of them with us that could be good to help us on our personal life so that we are successful both personally as well as publicly?
I think number one, how do you bring out the best in your team? And that might sound like an overused term, but we are now living in a world of algorithms, automation, autonomous cars, and people are showing up into the workforce waiting for the other shoe to drop. And what I believe the C-suite and certainly CEOs and CIOs have to know is how do I bring out the best in that person who may be coming from a challenging situation and you need them to be all in. How do you get the best out of them?
I like that. Simon, the way you address that is very important because too many people are real good in public. Oh, they look just dandy, all polished up and they look great, but in their personal life, it's not what they want to be and it's not
Absolutely.
what they could be. And you, sir, have stepped up to the line and you have helped people in some practical ways. I'm so glad you're going to be there in May talking about that for SIM for a meeting right here in Orlando. And someone says, okay, hey, I want to get to know more about him. I think you've got a LinkedIn. I think you and I are connected on LinkedIn. What's the best way for them to find out about you?
Certainly, they can go to LinkedIn, and there's something that we put out every day called the Bailey Daily. It is just a short, inspirational snackable that can be consumed in 2 minutes or less, and it gives you a tip, tool, or technique that you can implement that day.
Excellent. Well, Simon, you are a gentleman, sir. And those of you watching this, get to know this guy. He is a wonderful human being. Not only is he successful in business and does very well, I personally have known Simon. We're both here in Orlando. We're both members of the Professional Speakers Association, National Speakers Association. And this man is for real. One-on-one, in public, he's a professional, and one-on-one in private, he is. Get to know him and get to meet him at the May meeting coming up here in Orlando for SIM. Simon, thank you very much for being with us today.
And you forgot to tell them one more thing. We're part of the Clean Head Shave Club.
Exactly. We both have good haircuts. That's right. I love your barber. I'm high-fiving you, my man, across the miles here. Yes, indeed. So we got that. And so maybe we could offer a course on how to make sure you save on getting a haircut.
Exactly.
We could do that. Simon, you're a wonderful guy. And for those of you watching from SIM, thank you.